Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Audio Production Town Hall. We're glad you could join us. Every month you'll find us here talking about all sorts of topics of general interest to audio production nerds like us, from making records to making sound for games to the business of dance music and everything in between. So we hope you'll plan to join us regularly, but keep in mind that if you should ever miss one of our events, you can always find us a recorded version at the same link that got you here in the first place. Today we'll be talking about your Novation LaunchKey keyboard and some features and bundled goodies that you probably haven't explored, but you really ought to. I'm Brian Smithers. I'm the program director of audio production, so I oversee the bachelor's degree in audio production and the associate's degree, as well as the audio arts certificate program. And this month we are joined by John DiNicola, who is a field trainer and product specialist for Focusrite Group. John, welcome, and we're glad you could join us.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here.
Appreciate your time. Can we start by hearing a little bit about your background and how you got to this place today?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like a lot of everyone a lot of the viewers, I'm sure. I got into this as a teenager playing guitar in a band, and I was always the sound guy. So was always kind of got in, from the very beginning, was always into that side of things. And so yeah, I went to college for audio engineering technology, and have been in the industry doing this similar type of thing for over 10 years now. It's just a lot of fun. So for my gig, we generally go out and train people on how to use our products, how to sell our products in some cases, and then we also do a lot of cool events with end users like you all. So yeah, just happy to be here.
Cool. Well, we appreciate your time today. Looking forward to learning a lot of good things from you. So before we dive into the LaunchKey, a question about Focusrite. I used to think of Focusrite as makers of refined high-end processors and preamps and so forth. And the brand has really grown to branch out not only into interfaces and all sorts of different levels of audio gear, but also grown to include a bunch of different well-known brands. Can you share with our audience a little bit about who Focusrite really is these days?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great story. So Focusrite dates, as you mentioned, back to the late 80s when Rupert Neve, of course, set out to build one of the most no-hold-barred, expensive mixing consoles ever. So over $1 million price tag, and about 10 of them were made. That was the Forte console. Then a few years later, our founder, Phil Dutteridge, he was actually Led Zeppelin's live sound engineer, funny enough. He took over the company and started to parse that out into more accessible pieces for project studios and things like that. And that's where the legacy of Focusrite comes from. So we've been doing this for a very long time. Fast forward a few years later, we were working with Digidesign on the original M-Box. It was actually a Focusrite logo. So we've been doing digital for a long time as well. We've had Novation synthesizers and controllers. That brand Novation's been on board since 2004, so for quite a while. And so that's kind of the back history. And then in the last few years, the brand has really grown. I've been with the company since 2017. And a couple of years after that, we acquired Atom Audio, amazing studio monitors. Right. And it's just been growing from there. We have our new, we now have Sequential on board, and most recently Sonics plugins as well. So yeah, the group has really been growing.
Awesome. That's a lot of great brands under one roof. So Novation. So all of our audio production students taking classes online, which would be everyone that we're addressing today except for the campus certificate students, has included in their Launchbox bundle a Novation LaunchKey keyboard. And that's what we want to focus on today. So can you tell us a little bit about the overall design and intention behind the LaunchKey keyboard?
Yeah, absolutely. So the LaunchKey range, of course, is a range of keyboard controllers The name LaunchKey, launch specifically, is a reference to Ableton Live. So it was originally designed to have very deep integration with the Ableton Live DAW. For those of you who use Ableton Live, we always we say launch clips, and so that's kind of where that comes from, because you can use your pads like a launch pad to control Ableton. So that's kind of the thinking behind the range, but that's also really good for a lot of other DAWs as well. So we have that really nice tight Ableton integration, but over the years the range has grown to accommodate a lot of other DAWs. We have specific scripts for Logic and Reason and Cubase as well. And then, generic Huey support for basically any other DAW.
Very cool. So I'm happy to turn it over to you to talk us through the keyboard and introduce us to the features, and we'll just watch and follow along and butt in when we have some questions.
Sounds good. We'll get right into it then. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see my Ableton Live. And let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to show you the keyboard. There we go. I'm using the LaunchKey 25 today. So we have a number of models in the range with the LaunchKey MIDI, which is a much more portable version of this. And then we have the LaunchKey 25 is the smallest full-size keyboard. And then they go 25, 37, 49, 61, and we even have an 88 key model as well. So, there we go. Just came back on here. Sorry about that. So, taking a look at the LaunchKey here, we have Ableton Live set up. And
John, excuse me for just a second.
Yeah, sure.
We'd sorted out showing Ableton and the keyboard right now. Are you guys seeing the keyboard on screen? Yes? No. No. We are not seeing the LaunchKey currently. I'm seeing Ableton Live, but not the LaunchKey.
Okay. I'll stop the share for a moment, and I'll kind of talk about the keyboard.
Okay.
So as I was mentioning before, I just wanted to take you through, basically I'm going to be working in Ableton. I'm going to create kind of a basic beat and just using the features of the LaunchKey as well as some of the plugins that it comes with. In addition to the plugins that are included with the Hitmaker expansion. So I believe you all have Scarlett 18i20s. So the Scarlett 3rd Gen comes with a software package called the Hitmaker expansion. And in there is basically all the different plugins and virtual instruments you need to make a production. So we have virtual instruments for drums and piano from Addictive Keys, Addictive Drums. We have Antares Autotune Access. We have Native Instruments Massive Synth plugin. And so we're going to take a look at some of that stuff and how we can use it. And like Brian said, a lot of Scarlett users aren't aware of this plugin bundle, and there's probably a couple things in there you can use. So we're going to dive in and check it out. So I'm going to try to share the Ableton screen one more time and see if we can have that work. But that's probably going to make me disappear. Is that what's going on?
That's correct. We're looking at just Ableton at this point.
Okay. Well, then I'll get a little bit. We'll do what we can here to go back and forth and see if we can make this work. So while we have Ableton up on the screen, I'll highlight that little blue box that you see moving around up and down right now. Now, actually, let's take a step back. I'm not sure if everyone here uses Ableton Live, but this is kind of a unique workflow. Well, it used to be unique to Ableton, but a lot of other DAWs are now incorporating this, like Logic and even Pro Tools. But it's basically referred to as a non-linear workflow. So most DAWs look more like this arrangement view in Ableton. But Ableton Live came up with this new way of doing things where you have clips, which are these little boxes here. So sorry if this is a little bit basic for some of you, but just want to make sure we're all starting off on the same page. So when you're arranging or when you're working in Ableton, you basically have different clips that populate for each track, and you play one clip in each track at a time. And it allows you to kind of create and arrange your song on the fly. So I don't have a lot of things populated in here right now because we're going to be kind of creating as we go. So, but I did want to point out that main functionality of or a special feature of LaunchKey is the ability to control what Ableton calls as this session view, which is this grid right here that we're navigating right here. And so that's a feature you're really just going to find on LaunchKey keyboards. And so from here, I can go ahead and I can, for example, play this loop. So let me just switch this back, and I'll stop that real quick. So now if I stop this screen share and you're looking at the keyboard again, you can see I have my my grid is basically here. There's that yellow clip that I just played, and then there's a couple other clips I have down here for later on.
Right.
And I can navigate that right here on the keyboard. So I'm not having to click play with the mouse, of course.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the main features of the LaunchKey, as I mentioned, as it pertains to Ableton Live. So you can use that to navigate the session view. So let's start to kind of build up this beat a little bit more, and we'll add some other elements. So the first thing I'm going to try is using what we have. LaunchKey has some scale modes, what we call, and basically it is going to allow you to tell the keyboard what key you're going to be in. And then not only does it place all the correct notes on the key bed, but then it also allows you to play chords in that scale on the pads. So if you're not a keyboard player professionally like myself, I'm not one is what I'm trying to say, you can still get in there and create some really cool stuff. So that's what we're going to try to do here now. So I'm going to go into, let's go to my scale chord mode, which is right here. And now right away, if I highlight an instrument, I'm going to go, now you're not able to see this on the screen, but I'm basically using my track left and right here to highlight whatever track I want to play. So I'm highlighting the Lounge Lizard, which is an electric piano that is included with the LaunchKey. It's from AAS Session Bundle. And so now I have a bunch of chords up here on the pads. And those are going to change based on whatever key I'm in. So these are all triads. We have sevenths down here, ninths, and 6/9 chords. So just a cool way to get started. And so I'm going to go ahead and change the key. I'm going to go to scale here. I'm going to change this to D. Now it's in minor by default. You can change that with these different pads here. So I'll leave it in minor, and I can hit scale again, and my chords change a little bit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and lay this this track down. I'm going to go back to my session area here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this pad to record into this spot. And while it's counting down, we'll flip back into scale mode and we'll play those chords in. Let's give it a shot. Of course, we didn't have the drums playing yet, so let me undo that. We actually have an undo button right on the keyboard, and we'll go ahead and try that again. First, let's get our drums playing. So I'm going to go to session view. I'm going to play my drums. There we go. Now I can go over to my Lounge Lizard. 1, 2, 3, and okay. So now I'm just going to share the screen real quick so I can show you what we just did there. And I just have that clip that I just made. Now I'm going to shorten this up so that it only plays that first couple bars. And now if I hit play, we should be good to go. I can also hit the quantize button on the keyboard, and you see those notes shifted just a tiny bit right back into place so that they're right on time. And while we're looking at the screen, I can also control, using the device mode on the pads, or on the pots, I can control different parts of the keyboard. So if I got that hammer noise, it's a bit much, let's take that out. I got this symmetry control here. And of course, anything you're doing on these knobs, you can actually automate as well. If I wanted to record that automation in, I could hit the record button on the keyboard. I'll move this knob a little bit. And you can see that automation would record in there. So we got, that's the Lounge Lizard plugin. Again, that comes with the LaunchKey and gives you a nice little electric guitar or electric piano sound. So that's what we got so far. And let's go ahead and use now we're in scale mode. So now if I move over to my next track, which is going to be our massive synth, I'll bring that up here so you can see it. And we're going to use this to get a bass sound going. So what I'm using is, there's hundreds or probably thousands of patches in here, but if you go to the browser, you can kind of work your way to what you're looking for. So if I go to bass, and we go to, what do we have here? It's a physical, the patch I'm using is called Physical Model 01, so it's a pretty decent model of a bass guitar. And you can see, since we're in scale, I actually have that D minor scale across my the white keys here. So basically everything's going to be a right note. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring this back into. I'm going to go ahead and show you the keyboard again, and we're going to go back into our session view. And now I have this red pad because that's my second track. I'm going to be recording onto that. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Hit stop there. I can quantize that part if I wanted to. Now I'm going to go back to the screen because I want to make sure I trim that. Now if I was a little bit faster and I hit that record before the end of the bar, it would have looped it for me, but since I didn't, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that loop up. Whoop. And there we go. Now while we're here, let's say I wanted to do some adjustments to the track volumes. I can go to the volume. I can go to the, what's going on here? Device mode. Oh, I see, it went to the drum mode. There we go. Okay. So, have that going there. Just 1 second. So now if I flip back to the keyboard here if I stop the share, you can see that I have my 3 tracks that are playing here together. That's what happened. I didn't get that loop right, did I? So let's just go ahead and we'll pull this back. And we're good to go right there. So cool. All right, sorry about that. So we're good to go here now. Let's get back to I will show you the screen here. Sorry about having to go back and forth here. In fact, it might be easier. Let me see if I can do, oh, that's okay. We'll just stick with this for now. So we have any questions so far? Everything seems pretty straightforward. We were just using the scale chord modes and then the scale mode to do our bass part on the keys. So you can just you can see how easy it is to just kind of pick a scale, pick a chord mode, and just start creating things.
So I have thoughts. We don't have any questions yet, but those of you who are watching, if you do have questions as we go ahead and type those into the chat. We're monitoring the chat, and we'll be glad to pass along your questions to John as we go. I have actually a handful of thoughts. The first is you've done most of what you just did without using your mouse, right?
I'm trying to, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, definitely. I mean, even more so if we weren't for the demonstration. But yeah, you can really do, if you lay out a couple of tracks ahead of time like I did, you can kind of just scroll around the whole session. And yeah, that's the whole idea, is to kind of keep your hands away from the mouse and in the zone, yeah.
Right. Thing two, our music theory teachers would be just horrified and shocked at the idea that all the notes are right because of the keyboard. So don't even think about using that to get around learning your music theory, folks. It's a cop-out, and we will see through it. But in terms of staying in the vibe when you're trying to create, it's a great tool to have available.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, it still always helps to know your theory so that you actually know, what they're doing, So, yeah, definitely not a way to skip learning. I know for me, since I don't actually play piano, it just helps with the whole. I can like play my left hand with one finger, so I enjoy
Yep.
that. But yeah, definitely important to know that theory.
But in the process of explaining how to use that tool, you used all sorts of correct music theory terminology, underlining the point that it's critical stuff for us all to be conversant with.
For sure.
And the third thing, before I stop interrupting you, is I'm still personally, selfishly stuck on addictive drums, addictive keys, Lounge Lizard, one of my favorite electric pianos ever, and Massive, which is just, I mean, the name says it itself. It's a wonderful, great sounding synth from Native Instruments. So, I mean, if you're not already digging into these things and trying to see how they're going to help your own music, you're missing out on something here. This is some very cool toys to play with, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. The addictive keys and drums are really great. I don't have those in the session today, but yeah, those are really great as well. Actually, we have some good videos on our site that showcase different types of genres like rock or whatever it may, or dance, anything in between. It's you can really use those, the addictive keys especially.
Awesome.
So, all right. So speaking of the different plugins that are available, I'm going to go into, let's share the screen for a moment and let's talk a little bit about some of these plugins. So I have a little vocal chop that I have that I pulled up here. Actually, I forgot to mention at the top, this drum beat that we have here is a loop that I got from Splice, and that's also something that is included with the Scarlett. It's basically, you get, I think it's 3 months, so it's 300 credits worth. So that's 300 sounds that you can download. So this was one of them that I downloaded earlier. And then I also downloaded some vocal chops earlier as well. Now, actually, this is a great segue from your earlier point, Brian, about music theory. One of my favorite things to do in Splice is to go in there and find something that fits the song. But if you don't know what key you're in, that makes things a lot more difficult. So again, it's always helpful to know these things. Knowing that I'm working in D, that I'm working in D minor, I was able to go into Splice and just look up, vocal chops. And so I have a couple of things here because I wanted to show you some of these plugins and what they can do. So I'm going to play you this dry vocal chop. I'll let you hear it in the mix first. Let's give it a shot here. I'll solo it up. And now I could be doing that here too, so we should. Let's see. I'm going to solo that up. So, So that's just a nice sounding, really dry vocal part right there. And I just wanted to show you some of the different plugins and what we can do with it. So this is the Focusrite console plugin made by the folks over at Brainworks. This is a really awesome plugin. This used to only come with our higher end Claret and RedNet interfaces, but it is included in the Hitmaker expansion bundle now. And it's modeled after our original Focusrite console, as I mentioned at the top here. So this is a really killer plugin, killer sounding plugin. It's got a lot of great, even just the presets that it comes with. You just throw those on, make a little bit of tweaks, and it's really great. So I'm using that now for a little compression, and then just adding little top end. And here's what it sounds like. Took it out. So here's it out right now. And we bring it in and it just smooths things out. We've got a lot of gain reduction, but it's pretty transparent. So that's nice to have there. And we're also, a little bit more fun is going to be these, we'll get to that in 1 second. I'm also going to use the auto-tune access. So this is a very basic version of auto-tune, but it can do some, the fun, hard tuning effects or your more basic stuff. So I just have it on the fast retune speed in my D key signature here. So let's play that. Turn it on. Get a little bit of that effect sound going on there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fatten it up a little bit using our plugins from Sonix. Now, these were added to Hitmaker expansion for 4th gen, so you may not have these, but just wanted to show them to you really quick because they're pretty cool. So this is a thicken and widen plugin from Sonix. And so that's basically going to do exactly that. It's kind of like simulating if you were to overdub a bunch. So if you don't get the opportunity to overdub, or you're mixing someone else's track and you want to get some thicker vocals, this is a way to do it. And so let's turn it on and play with them a little bit. So here's thicken. Now if I go to my device mode, I can control this from the keyboard as well. So let's try that out. So it's bypassed. On. Increase the depth, the mix. You can humanize it with pitch and timing. Still pretty natural sounding. But then let's go over to the widen plugin. We'll add that in too. It's gonna turn it on. And that really just, as you would expect, widens things out. And as you can see, really easy to get a good sound with these. I'm really kind of just messing around here. The tone control is helpful for, let's see here. There we go. You can make it, the double voices a little bit higher or lower. So let's go ahead and hear that in context real quick. Now, of course, that's too loud. I'll drink it down here. Bring it down. That's pretty cool, right? Now, the only thing missing, of course, is some reverb. It's really dry. So I wanted to show you we have the LX480 that's included in Hitmaker expansion. And this is a really great emulation of the classic Lexicon LX480. So I'm going to use the keyboard to send to it. I have the send mode here. I'll give you a quick look at the keyboard so you can see what's going on. I'll stop my share. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to use let's play this again. And I can use my send for that vocal track, which is right here. And there it is. We'll solo that up. Not sure how well that's coming through over Zoom, but just really nice reverb tails on that LX480. And here it is in the song. And I'll play another chop through that just so you can hear another one. Now, and I can change those parts from the keyboard too. So if I go down here, I got my other vocal part. You know, I could also stop other tracks by hitting an empty spot. So if I want to turn the drums off for a second, for example, we could do this. So this is where the Launchpad thing can be kind of fun. And then we'll bring the drums back. Let's go back to our other vocal part. So hopefully you're getting an idea of how fun it can be to work on this session view in Ableton Live, and how cool some of these Hitmaker plugins are. I really like that reverb.
Yeah, that's nice. That's the Lexicon, for those of you who don't know, is one of the classic reverbs of the modern era. It was a mark of a serious commercial studio that they had to have that. That was one of a few pieces of select gear that really defined a certain level of professionalism in a studio. So it's great to have a good emulation of that available.
For sure. Even if you aren't familiar with it, you've probably seen photos of consoles with the remote control for it right on the center of the desk there. So I'm sure you've seen it. But yeah, so it's a good one to have, especially good one to have in there as well. You know, so between the auto tune that's included, you know, the Focusrite console plugin, you know, and then that as well, you can really get some killer vocals down. All right, so I'm going to go back to the screen and we'll move on.
You know, you just demonstrated one of my favorite things about Ableton Live is the ability to pretty much improvise your arrangement and song structure based on triggering the different clips in different combinations, and mute things and take them out and add things and switch on the fly and stumble onto combinations of different parts and different sounds that you wouldn't have really gotten to if you were just thinking linearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I definitely kind of rushed through that a little bit at the top because I wasn't sure how familiar everyone is with Ableton. But yeah, it's definitely a new way to work, a different way to work, and it's definitely, you can see it's clearly becoming popular because you can see some other DAWs adding that in there as well. If you are any Logic users out there, they have live loops now. It's basically the same workflow. Yep. And Pro Tools just incorporated it as well. So yeah, if you haven't tried it out, definitely give it a shot.
Very cool.
Awesome. So looks like we still have a little bit more time here. So what else can I show you from Hitmakers? I have Hitmaker also comes with a soft tube Marshall guitar amp plugin. And nice. So, you know, that's going to allow you to plug in directly into the instrument input on your Scarlett, and then you can actually emulate, you know, what real guitar amps sound like. So if anyone's ever plugged into interface directly with your guitar, you know that it can be a little bit dull. You know, it's not, it doesn't have the sound of that, you know, hitting the air kind of, you know, that you get out of an amp. So I have this little thing that I recorded earlier so you wouldn't have to sit through me doing this. And so this is just a straight, clear, clean guitar with nothing on it. So this is a little, you know, just nothing really going on there. And that's pretty much what you're going to get when you plug a guitar in direct if you don't have any, you know, some kind of amp or cabinet simulator. So that's what the Marshall plugin is going to do here for us. So I just loaded up, again, I'm a big fan of getting presets and then just kind of tweaking from there. So I have the clean, dry stereo preset. And all I do is turn that on, and you turn that on here. And then all of a sudden, it's really, you know, sounds more like a guitar. You kind of just breathes a lot of life into it. So here it is off and on. Now, of course, I can adjust the knobs from here as well. Whoop. There we go. So I have the knobs are super small on this, but I can control all that from the keyboard as well. Maybe get a little bit more drive in there. You know, distortion, all that kind of stuff if I want. So let's go ahead and hear that in context with everything else. Now I can change it here. A lot of treble on that. There we go. That would probably sound good in the reverb too. So I'm going to go to my sends and send that over there. Guitars covered too now. Nice. Let's get those vocals back in. Maybe we'll do some panning. Let's get that guitar on one side. So I can do that from the keyboard as well. Maybe put the vocal part on the other side. Stop this for a second, and I got one more kind of cool thing I'd like to show you as far as creative features on the LaunchKey, and that's going to be the arpeggiator. So let's go. I have another instance of Massive happening here, which is that's a pretty crazy patch for this song, but we'll see if we can make it work. I'm going to go to the arpeggiator. I'm going to turn that on. Let me stop the share so you can see what I'm doing here. So let's see. Okay, we got some stuff happening here. Let me just turn this on. There we go. I must have had the latch on. Just 1 second. Rhythm. I see. Got it. And up, down. Okay. So we're going to put this in scale mode so we don't have any wrong notes. We're going to put the ARP on latch. And let's see what happens here. So we're going to let that play. And now we're going to play the song. Hopefully this will sync up for us. Okay, cool. Let me stop some of our other tracks. So that's just a standard arpeggiator, kind of just going up and down, as you can tell, a little bit boring. But what's fun on here is we have a feature called mutate. So I can hit the mutate button here, and now I have this knob up here, and as I turn it, it's going to keep changing the melody. Listen to it. And the higher on mutate I go, the crazier it'll get. Now if I like something, I stop, and it will keep that pattern going. Let's also change the gate on that. There we go. And finally, there's another feature called deviate that kind of does that same thing with the melody. So turn on deviate, and it'll start to skip notes. Let's get that in the reverb too. So now that's just playing on my keyboard right now through the ARP. If I wanted to, of course, I can just record it into a track. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I have that in the keyboard. I can turn the keyboard off, and if I share my screen, you'll see what we just had. And we'll play. There's my part. And of course, it's a little bit loud. Let's go turn that down. There you go.
Nice.
And of course, as Brian pointed out before, from here I can go ahead and just kind of do whatever I want to do. Stop this. And you get the idea. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun with the LaunchKey to kind of just get lost in a jam, you know?
Nice. That's awesome. So I have lots of questions, but first let's check and see if we have any questions from our viewers. Okay, no questions so far, but if you do have any, feel free to type them into the chat and we will get to them. So that means I get to ask a couple of questions. Thing one, I know that Ableton Live has an arpeggiator, but that's not what you just demonstrated. You just demonstrated an arpeggiator built into the LaunchKey, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So I love the immediacy of the variations you're able to achieve. Does it also have variations in terms of up and down and random configurations like many arpeggiators do?
Yep, yeah, it's all across the bottom here. It's probably hard to see, but yeah, as you go to shift, we have up, we have down, up, down. You could do a played, random, chord, and then that last mode is mutate, where you can use the knob to mix things up a little bit.
Okay. You led us right straight into my next question, which is trying to get this kind of leverage out of the LaunchKey is necessarily going to require a little bit of research. A little bit of research and a lot of experimentation, because you have to actually educate yourself about the way these keys become something other than what they immediately are. So let's start basically with two questions. Question number one, you were just pointing to the functions, and I'm pointing to a video monitor here as though you can actually see what I'm pointing to, but you get my idea. The things that you're pointing to there, how do you engage those functions? And then my second question is, how do you switch modes? A couple of minutes ago, you were controlling the knobs on the amp, and then in a matter of a second or two, you switched to controlling pan and functions within Ableton Live itself. So those are kind of two levels of accessing the controls that it would be useful to find out a little bit more about.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great point there. So yes, on the launch keys and a lot of products in general, you'll find that you might see like there's like a little, you have a button like my scale button here, for example, and then on top of it in like a lighter font, it says something else. And so that's, at least in our case, that's indicating a shift function. So if you press shift, it's going to lead you to pretty much wherever that is or whatever it's telling you on the little grayed out word here. So for example, when I wanted to turn my arpeggiator latch on, I can turn the arp on and off, on and off. But if I want to do latch, I have to go shift arp because and then it says it on my screen right here. So yeah, that's how you would get around as far as all the different functions on the keyboard. And so the keys are basically all the different arp types. So I mentioned the types, then they have the rates, the octaves, and the rhythms. So that's pretty much going across the keys there. And then as far as the different modes, we have, as you mentioned, so there's pop modes and pad modes. And on the 49, you have fader modes as well. And you can change those by hitting shift. And we have the pads labeled here. So the top row controls the pots, and the bottom row controls what the pads are doing. So when I was controlling the plugin, that would be device. And so what I did, so I can be, and then basically these are always going to be, tracks 1 through 8 here. And so that's why I was able to go so fast. So I know, for example, if I'm adjusting the volume of something and I want to send it to the reverb, it's going to be the same pot. I just have to go to sends and then change that pot. And so that's basically, so you go device, volume, pan, and sends. Those are the 4 modes that are automatically mapped inside of Ableton. And then we also provide custom modes on the right. So Ableton is really good with mapping a lot of other DAWs as well. So let's just say there's a control I want to control that isn't mapped already. I can go to my custom mode, and then inside of Ableton, I can map these controls to whatever I want, and they won't affect, that's a whole nother mode now that I have. This is pretty cool with the launch key that it can do this, and it can do this for the pads as well and the faders if you have a 49. So that's really fun for inside your DAW. It's also really fun if you happen to have external synthesizers, hardware synthesizers, because then you can start to control those from the knobs as well. So it gets, as you point out, it can get pretty advanced. But yeah, that's how you would switch it. It's the shift button here, and then you just go across on the pads between the different modes.
Cool. Once you know how to do that, that's really straightforward. That's great. I appreciate you illuminating that for us. We are pretty close to our ending time here. So first, let me say thank you so much, John, for joining us. You have an open invitation to come back to a town hall again in the future. There's obviously a lot more that we could dig into here, and we'd really enjoy that. I guess my closing thought is for someone who's staring their launch key in the face and saying, I need to get to know you better, what's your jumping off point? What's your kind of most direct point of entry into really starting to get some bang for your buck out of learning these features of the keyboard? Where would you suggest that our students start to get some immediate return and kind of keep that motivation coming to dig deeper as they go?
I would probably say, because nobody wants to read the manual, so outside of that, I would say, YouTube's great resource. There's a lot of great third-party creators, but even on our own YouTube, Novation, we have a lot of easily digestible, 60-second clips showing you different features, kind of like what I just did. It'll be a minute video where it's like, this is scale mode, and it shows you how to do it really fast. And so we have a lot of great resources on our website or on our YouTube. So I would suggest maybe starting there.
Cool, that's great. I'm actually gonna push back in favor of manual diving.
I do recommend that too. I really do. Yeah, I had to do it I do it myself. Even before something like this, just because there's always something in there that hiding from you that
I've learned a lot of great things from YouTube videos, and I guess I can't really denigrate YouTube videos as we're live streaming on YouTube. That would be too ironic. But at the same time, avoiding manuals is just for people who aren't that interested in being good.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you wanna,
fair point.
If you really want to know, if you really want to grow, if you really want to, to be a master of the technology, of your instruments, of your creativity, you're just going to have to find some time to actually read what's been written and understand it at a level that people who just float over the top superficially are never going to reach. That's the sign of someone who's really showing some motivation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, awesome. Wow. Okay. So, I know I got to go home and dig out some of these goodies and make them my own. But you've given us plenty to think about, and we really sure appreciate your time today, John. So, thanks very much.
Thank you, Brian. It's fun to be here.
Super. Well, that's about all the time that we have for today. We hope you've enjoyed hearing about your LaunchKey and the bundled software and features that you probably hadn't thought that much about. We'd like to thank John DiNicola from Focusrite Group for joining us this month. And remember that the Audio Production Town Hall is here every month. It's typically the first Monday of, the Monday of week 4 of each class, but keep an eye on FS1 to see what's up and what we're doing in any given month. We'd like to thank our friends in show production, this month's Audiovisual Technologies class and their course director, John Kost, for producing this live stream. Really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working with you all, and you've done a great job. Thank you so much. And with that, we're out. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next month.